Maja, you can hear us. Greetings from the Impact Festival.
Hello, good morning.
Good morning, Maja. So we're making steps. Last year you've been with us virtually, this time live virtually, so all good things come in three, so fingers crossed for next year. We're going to start with your keynote presentation on shifting paradigms, and then we're going to dive deeper with our panel. So if you're set, I would say the virtual stage is all yours.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And I don't know, I was probably more bummed than what Maja said, because I was really looking forward to learning from all of you and connecting. And then, unfortunately, my intervertebral disc decided to pop. And so now I'm a bit immobilized, but on drugs. So if I make a lot of sense to you, that's fantastic. If you feel there's one or two elements that she's added, we haven't heard from her before, we're in this together. And I'm also really looking forward to the search. Two things that I took out from what Maja was saying, or actually three of what I heard in the openings. A is change the systems. And this is exactly what's the perspective that I've been writing from, especially in my last book, to really say, if we get into system thinking much more deeply in trying to nail what is the paradigm shift in essence that we're up against today, then we might also have, and that's a second thing that it connects nicely with, an opportunity to bridge across the typical camps and out of the bubble. Because when you come with complexity research, that opens up a space to talk about connections, dynamics, how things link together, that doesn't necessarily make you a green person to talk about these issues or make you a lefty when you're coming into, we have to talk about distributional elements in the system in order for us to understand what are the dynamics of its development. So I hope that with systems views and systems perspectives, we might be able to, ground a little bit the sometimes very polarized and politicized ways of engaging how we can go forward. And so this is the point of view from which I'm talking. And it also easily lets us understand that we're up against more than just changing the fossil engine behind the system as it is right now, but really have to think about how we do things differently in terms of an economic system appreciating, valuating, and regenerating the ecosystem forces and value creation that we've been inheriting. And with this, I'm starting to share with you, if I may. No, there we go. Too fast. This quest for a paradigm shift, how it's been formulated by an interdisciplinary get-together of Nobel laureates in 2021, that really puts it, I think, center stage on why it's the system thinking that we all want to embrace in order to understand where the levers for change are sitting, which is effective planetary stewardship, requires updating our Holocene mindset. And I'll lead you through 4 points where I think the Holocene mindset is holding us hostage right now and how we get into an anthropocene mindset. And at the core is this: we must act on the urgency. So there's a timely component to that. The scale, how do we understand how things link together? And this interconnectivity between us and our home planet Earth. So to really stop this notion of humanity is somewhat separated from the planet, or nature is something that's outside of us. Environment, environnement, our in German Umwelt already has it in it. It is something that we are describing as being around us. But I think latest with the coronavirus, we've quite clearly understood it's in us. And then when we think about who we are as biological beings, we're taking in water, we're taking in food, we're taking in air every single day. And this means we're putting stuff out again into nature and we're taking back in. So this notion of it being around us is not really how we're going to get to understanding the urgency and this interconnectivity. And this is why I like opening conversations, asking people what they think is what is wealth to them? Because when you think about how we are primed and how we use terminology with which we're orientating good direction or something aspirational or something to go towards to, wealth obviously is a key concept and success. And wealth, usually we measure in monetary terms, and we think that it can accumulate endlessly. But when you think of this coming from the stewardship point of view and the anthropocene mindset, It is something that we want to completely shift around, because the biggest wealth humanity has inherited is a functioning, fantastic blue marble that allows for biological beings like us to exist and to flourish. And that's been already in the Brundtland Report of 1987, when they said we're up against this biggest upset of the human self-image, when we are coming from space, looking at these intricacies and the networks, and understand that if we destroy their functioning, that means we're not in a good space. And so, like the Copernican revolution, where we're a bit reminded, no, we're actually not the center and the sun radiating around us, but we're the ones that are traveling around the sun. Now it's, humanity is not the total king of this planet, but spaceship Earth is something we want to really take care of, because there's nothing else that we want to migrate to. I know some are very busy trying Mars. Not sure if that's a place that we want to exist. And I'm also not sure how many can actually go there. So this whole idea of we're in this together, planetary stewardship, and humanity as a whole has been an innovation in the 20th century. For the first time, with the UN being born, etc., after 2 world wars, this whole concept of we are one planet, we are one humanity, has been born for the first time, which is amazing. When you think of it backwards, it was only maximum nations or regions. And now for the first time, there's been an awareness, A, that there is this one space we're sharing, and B, that we might want to talk about why some people have more right to use this space than others. And if we think about maintaining peace, why it might be a very good idea to say, let's try using it in a way that we create high quality of life, good well-being for everyone, and don't have to start fighting over resources too badly. And I think this is what we're seeing right now in the geopolitical turmoils of reorganizing who is, I think, the boss of the world, especially between China and the US. If there's one thing that we can do in Europe, let's try to develop the solutions, and let's try to develop the technologies with which we can say there's enough space for everyone. That would be the massive contribution for us to take right now. And I think it is, when we're looking about the world population share that we have, probably also a very selfish one, if you want to look at it that way. But let's go for the positive, because yes, we do see we haven't been taking care of this very well. This is the global risk report of the World Economic Forum. And we've heard it just now. It should be at the top of the agenda to say everything that we do right now has to get us out of these trends that are massively risking our wealth to perpetuate and continue. But when you look at the public discourse right now, you see how it's all being shifted to the side again. Climate change with a decent speed, so we're not hampering wealth in the old way of metrics. Or now we've had this whole battle in the Green Deal. I didn't know if you followed it, but there's 2 more policies that are coming out on the regeneration of nature and the reduction of pesticides. Biodiversity, huge issue, much underappreciated in the public discourse. And we had a huge attack from part of the European Parliament to stall the Green Deal on this measure. So why is it so difficult to say that things are labeled green? Also in this diagram, maybe we want to get out of labeling it green, to give it an opening that is not connected with one party or with something soft, but to say actually it's a security agenda and it is a design agenda. And this is obviously where this crowd comes in, to say it is actually a really fantastic perspective to get into, to understand how ecological systems work and to make them work with us, for us, and to also cherish and respect them for it. And this is why I'll quickly go to those 4 parts or 4 changes that I think in Paradigm might help us get there before we enter the discussion. So for me, one of the very crucial aspects in shifting from the Holocene mindset into the paradigm that holds to or helps us steer the Anthropocene is to get from parts to partakers. Since Newton, it's been this notion of there's atoms, and you still have it in economic theory with the Homo economicus, or individuals, and we're all individuals that are somehow the way we are, and then we bounce off each other in some relationships or another, but we stay as we've been before the interactions, and somehow we're not really connected. And this is not how complex systems describe how we are. And the good thing is it's not only ecology, but also sociology, psychology, etc. that make very clear we are being developed by our interactions with others. And we always have an effect. This is right now the big debate. I think it's crucial to go against, to say, we don't want to change too much. We're changing every single day a lot of things, especially if we're continuing to do the things as we've been doing until now. When you look at prognostics, business as usual, and most of the statistics is labeled as a not very good path to go. And to think, unless we're changing policy, we're not changing the world is mad. We're changing it every single day. So we have to push back on this. Change is happening, and we're leading towards a transformation right now that is by disaster. And we want to shift the directionality into something that would be transformation by design towards achieving sustainability goals and goals that we've enshrined in our human rights charters, etc. And for this to understand, you cannot not have an effect. Wirks is the German term for that. So Wirkung, we always have Wirkung. We always have an effect on others. If we don't say anything and accept for things to continue, or if we say, maybe we can do it slightly differently. This is empowering. And at the same time, obviously, it creates a lot of responsibility and sometimes maybe a bit of fear, but we can't really shy away from it. It's there. And so these arguments, oh, don't be moralizing, etc. It's not moralizing. It's simple physics. When you look at how things are relating to each other, you will have an effect. If you behave this in this way, you are signaling to others what is a good behavior or an acceptable behavior. So you can't take yourself out of the responsibility of taking the freedom to act in a particular way in a particular moment. And this is why this itemized way of looking at the world, just a square meter of land or a cubic meter of wood, is not how we're going to understand how things link together. And those familiar with biodiversity will clearly see that this is also an end to only market-based solutions, because you can't put a price tag, like on CO2 it was still possible, on those intricate webs. There has to be something spatial to it. So we have to understand the connectivity, and we have to understand how things link together to look at what is the governance regime that can get us there. What are the incentives? What are the indicators we want to look at? And that can be pricing in some areas, and it will have to be something else in others. And to really cherish what is being done for us, who's working for us every single day to recreate the humus in the soil, the microorganisms that are allowing for the water to be stored in there, etc. So really step back and say, who are we on this planet? How do we want to live, and where do we want to go? And that comes with it when we understand those intricacies, that there's something like a rhythm to living systems. And when you look at the technological agenda and how we're celebrating speed and acceleration, and you see what's been happening since 1950s, the Great Acceleration has fantastic graphs. It's all going up and faster. But does that necessarily mean that we're going to solve the problems? Doing something that's not geared at a solution ever faster, maybe slightly more efficiently, is not going to solve the problem. But we have to understand the rhythm of regeneration in order for us to develop technologies that can help us do this well and monitor that well. And it might mean that we're not going to have as much as quickly as we're used to. But it might mean that we're then going to have it long term. And longevity in products and in other devices has been a clear quality signal for the longest period of time. It's very recent that we say every half year, on every 4 weeks, we have to have a new trend, a new this, a new that. It's not necessity for a high quality of life. And it's very ruthless when you think of where all of that comes from. And the same, how do we make technology really allow for people to develop and for people to be supported in what they do in their everyday work, instead of putting them under tremendous pressure to have to outcompete an algorithmic system? And what is the contribution that humans only can make? And how do we ensure that we're going to have human-centered AI, human-supporting algorithms and digital developments, rather than replacing and monitoring and manipulating ones? Overall, what is the right speed for us to feel well as beings that are not only biological, but also that flourish under good relationships? And that's the well-being agenda. Very high on there is not ever more stuff, but it is health. And that comes with not accelerating too much, because this is not going to make you feel healthy. And it means having time for your friends, having the time to rethink a few things, and feeling slightly control of your life. So overstuffing our every single day is just because technologically it's possible, And overcrowding the information flows is not going to help us, but derail us. And get us into not quite understanding the regeneration part, which is the third aspect I want to highlight enough. Extraction, especially when you look at successful business models, etc., we see it in our cities everywhere. It's the investors that are basically saying under which circumstances they're willing to give the broke communities money to build. But when the notion is that you're a successful company, if you've made a lot of money from creating living space, and this is what we're talking about, and you only look at it as an asset whose value is supposed to increase in monetary terms, that means you're just using a place that other people call my home as something that you want to extract financial value from. And that's where we're going wrong. And this is why this impact community is so necessary and so right in saying, how do we make sure that we're seeing what is the social and ecological value created through using money as a social technology that has no use value in itself, but should be an instrument to creating that value for humanity? How is that better benchmarked? And how do we find the business models that allow then for us to create very different spaces? The way we benchmark economic success is going to be the key driver behind what we are going to build and live in tomorrow. And I think we have to make that much more clear. And it's not just short term and now, but it is the creation of our future spaces that we're talking about and freedoms. And this is why it is, my last point, so important to get out of the financial tyrannies. That's E.O. Wilson said it nicely. It's only cynics that know the price of everything and the value of nothing. And too abstract numerical codes make you completely forget about what's happening on the ground and for people behind this. And if we have stock trading in Chicago about grain and people are competing about getting the most out of it, this means people in Haiti are eating earth or soil cookies because they can't have access to grains anymore. And this is what's tyrannies. It does take away the visibility of the impacts of using that social innovation that we've created that is so powerful. That's called money. And this is why we have to put out there, where are we doing the wrong metrics? How are we benchmarking success whilst we're downgrading the social and ecological base and wealth that we're depending and living from? This is just an example of the food sector. 10 billion being accounted for, and then the cost that would be in the books, if we're looking at it correctly, is 12 trillion. We're downgrading humans' health because of the wrong dietary deliveries that's coming out of this food system. We're downgrading the environment and its possibility to regenerate for us the healthy food in the future. And increasingly, through the power play in the markets and the price competition, we're fading out small producers, meaning we're ruining a lot of rural communities' existence. And that's, especially in the international terms, a very unhelpful development path. Food may be cheaper for us, but there it means ruining living spaces and resilient communities. So how do we correct for this? And this is just one last example of where I think it is important. And you all have your different approaches and metrics. And I think this is what it's important to say. We're on the way. And we're not going to shy away, because the arguments are often, oh, but these metrics are not as good as, they don't perfectly measure as. Be very aware and hold back that beyond GDP, for example, is neither a measurement. There's a lot of guesswork in there. And is absolutely proven to be wrong. So why does only the alternative have to be perfect according to particular benchmarks that the existing is not living up to? This is what we always have to be aware of when we're arguing about changing things. Why is maintaining what is there okay just because it's there? Why does the new have to justify itself according to much harder benchmarks than the existing is meeting today? So if it's social and environmental businesses, they have to prove they're also contributing to GDP a lot, also have a normal profit bench. Why don't we stop talking about it this way and say, look, we only have about 5% that are actually creating the social and ecological value that we want as a social license to operate for business to adhere or deliver on. And the rest is brown and socially destructive ways of doing business that we should end, because that's not what we're here for, and we can do much better. And this is why I look forward to our discussion, and thank you all very, very much.